Darkfate by Kevin Solis is a very important video game for me. I played it about 5 years ago, and it's been extremely important for me developing my own critical outlook. I mean, obviously, as you can see, it's a very moving and enigmatic story where you can let your imagination run wild in the mysterious world, and it's full of surprises and a deeply moving story that you can experience in total immersion. And you know all this because the game tells you this in the help menu, so you can know how you're supposed to be feeling while you're playing the game. Pretentious is an ugly word. As a kid, I kind of associated it with my brothers making fun of me for trying to develop kind of a critical framework and a critical approach to media, as opposed to just kind of consuming it passively. So I would try to talk about movies in kind of a deeper way, or games in a deeper way, and they would say I'm being pretentious, because if I have any kind of talk about themes or ideas, then that was the language to them. Pretension was criticism. And obviously my ideas back then were not very kind of facile and childish, and that's okay. But dismissing criticism or deeper works outright because of this idea of they're pretentious is idiotic. I hate it. But the word pretentious has a use. It's a very specific use. And it's not for games that are difficult to understand. It's not for stories that are difficult to understand. Mulholland Drive isn't pretentious because you don't know what it's supposed to mean. Pretension is when it's incredibly obvious what somebody's trying to do in art, but it's incredibly obvious, but they don't realize that it is. This game is Darkfate, is the first experience I really have dealing with, or I really realized I was dealing with something pretentious. It's a facile, obvious, completely in-your-face story that bashes you over the head with its ideas, which themselves are very uninteresting. It has fucking chapter titles. There are 10 chapter titles, and it's a 10-minute long game. It has a preamble. Okay. Back it up a bit. This is a great example to me of what pretension means in my critical framework. It does not mean something that's difficult to understand. It does not mean something... it does not mean criticism. It means something that thinks it's way, way smarter than it actually is. And that's what Darkfate is. I'm being very mean here. This is just a simple little free game. It's not even on the internet anymore. And I was mourning its loss before realizing that I still had it saved on my computer from years and years ago. But, so this is harmless, obviously. And it could have been a very, just a totally valid first step towards kind of creating more meaningful art that's less just in your face, but it looks like Kevin Solis stopped making games and he's just kind of working in tech now, and that's fine. But, this game. It's the kind of experience where when you reach the conclusion, you either slam your forehead into your desk or just burst out laughing. There's a lot of surface-level things about Darkfate, and you've probably developed a lot of opinions based on Darkfate, based on what you've seen so far. There's a lot of surface-level things about it that I like. I like that it's a game that's focused on telling a story first and foremost. I like that it uses spatial exploration as a pacing mechanism to tell that story. And I like the screen-by-screen scrolling approach, where there's no scrolling, it just cuts between individual screens. And it's pretty seamless for the most part. It's also very ambitious. There's a huge number of screens and spaces that are often kind of interesting. There's a lot of attention paid to the oral design. And I appreciate that. I appreciate stories that pay attention to how sound affects our experiences. I don't like its reliance on many just dreadfully cliche storytelling tools. The amnesiac hero, the text logs, the utterly stupid use of text logs as the storytelling mechanism for how this game progresses. I'm fine with the kind of shaky platforming and the occasional bug. I have to restart the game. I had to restart the game a couple times later, but it's just there's something very tangibly obnoxious about Darkfate that when it's the kind of game that I generally am okay with. It's just this artsy-fartsy 2D platformer that's trying to tell an interesting story. I love those. I love Don't Look Back by Terry Kavanagh. I think that that is an example of a game that takes this kind of shape and executes it perfectly. It does not... Don't Look Back does not slam in your face that it's a retelling of a Greek myth. It has subtlety. It has class. And while the music is big and in your face, it's still not as oppressive as this game can get later on. And it's shorter. This game is stretched out way too far, and I apologize for the elongated length of the video. And you don't need chapter titles if your game is 20 minutes long. You don't need 10 chapters if your game is 20 minutes long. That's a chapter every 2 minutes. Those aren't chapters. Those are sentences. Those are paragraphs. And unless you're William Faulkner, you don't do that. So it's engaging in this very kind of trite story with time travel and the end of the world, created by science gone wrong. And the writing's bad, but you can kind of forgive that because Kevin Solis is French, and his work was actually translated into English. So the actual quality of the writing is something I can kind of forgive for that reason. And again, I'm okay with using spatial exploration as a pacing mechanism. And it might not be obvious why this game bugs me so much until we get to the ending. So we'll get to that. But I've made games that try to... Like, my game Fugitive has a lot of DNA in common with Darkfate. And I can see so many ways that if I had fallen into these same patterns, my work could just be really dreadful. And it hurts to see that. But the use of text overlaying the scenes is just very on the nose here and obnoxious. The text is the center of the story. It does not. It uses that as its central storytelling mechanism, and that's boring. It's different from the way Starguard uses text. It's different from the way Dysphoria uses text. It's definitely different from the way Problematic uses text. Text is a very useful, interesting tool that games can use. Not everything needs to be eco. Not everything needs to be Another World specifically. You can use text. Oh, that game over screen is so fucking obnoxious. We can use text to tell stories in games. That is a thing that games can do. That is valid. I love how the alternate paths in this game are actually just completely wastes of time because of the nature of the story shape. Like, what? This adds nothing. This is just a dead end. The only thing you can do is just kill yourself or walk all the way back. Ugh. And now we can walk this way. We have another maze. Golly. Good golly. Joy. Joy in heaven. So I'm being very mean here, and I generally try to center my criticism around commitment to positivity and love. And I don't hate this game. Oh, Jesus. I don't hate this game. It represents a bunch of things about the arty-farty 2D platforming scene that is extremely obnoxious. It's kind of the quintessential... For me, this is the quintessential pretentious 2D platformer. The kind of thing that Red Spray would make fun of. And it feels really mean saying all this, especially when the creator of the game, it's no longer online. You cannot find this game anywhere. I can hook you up with my EXE if you're really interested. Because I don't think any game deserves to disappear from history. This game was important to me. It helped me parse out ideas and critical approaches that I hadn't really thought about before. Because the texture of this game is very not offensive immediately. Aside from the chapter titles and the opening... Oh, God. And the opening credits... I'm okay with the texture of this game. I like the style. I would have liked it more if... oh, my God! Whoa! And now we have the super on-the-nose choir piece. Alright, we found a log by my grave. That's important later. But yeah, this game is important to me. And it's important that we preserve our history with this medium. And I think it's a shame that this game has disappeared from the internet, and I hope that... And again, if you want to preserve this, I'd feel weird hosting it online, just because it's not my work, and Kevin Solis is still around. But if you want to specifically play this, I can hook you up with the EXE. But yeah, this game kind of taught me an approach to a knowledge about how I think art should tell a story in a way that just experiencing good examples of games wouldn't work. If I just played Don't Look Back, that doesn't really teach me how to tell a story in a 2D platformer like this game. That chapter was like a minute long. There were like 2 logs. That was a sentence. That was a phrase, not a chapter. Oh. This bridge is important later on. But I hope that it's obvious why this game is kind of offensive to me and how it presents its story. The help screen tells you how you're supposed to feel while you play the story. The old website where you can download this game tells you how you're supposed to feel while you're experiencing the story. Everything about Darkfate is directing you towards how the ideas it's supposed to put into your brain. And that is the lesson here. This is actually a cool moment here with the blood and the corpses. And then it fucks it up. But art isn't about shoving an idea into your viewers' heads. That you can't just go into a game thinking, I'm going to tell a story about how the world is... You can't just go into it thinking, this is what I'm going to shove into the viewer's head, because then you're just going to spend the whole time ramming it down their throats. And again, it's also offensive because the ideas in this game are very, very dumb. We'll get to that later. But it's just a backwards approach to creating art, and I know that's weird to try to tell anybody how they're supposed to create art, but just in my experience, I can't think of a piece where it felt everything felt contrived around putting these ideas in my head that didn't feel kind of on the nose and offensive to me. And there's a handful. There are certainly much more hateful games out there. Edmund is an on-the-nose, artsy-fartsy 2D platformer that begins with a player-controlled sexual assault for no reason. It's an evil game that's using a horrible crime to try to inject artificial depth. Darkfate isn't evil. It's just asinine. It's just obnoxious. Oh, look, another chapter title. If you've been keeping up with the story and reading the little logs and the chapter titles, then hopefully when we get to the end, it'll be clear why it's stuck with me so long. There's so much better that games can do. This is like the kind of game that Retsupre talks over, or that when I hear a person kind of mock the free personal games that I care about, this is the kind of game that they're thinking of as standing in for the kind of games that I like. Like, I love, just in 2D platformers, I love Don't Look Back, Starguard, Sabbath, Redder. Beautiful games. Beautiful games. That Darkfate is obviously, like, striving... Oh, God. Oh, God, what do we even do here? And like I said, a lack of mechanical polish, bugs... Like, that's kind of whatever. Like, this is obnoxious. This is only really obnoxious because the game is so just facile. Alright, here we go. And platforming sections that are pretty miserable, are only really obnoxious because the game over screen is so in your face. And the reason that people make fun of the kind of free personal visions is that, at least in the past, when I was a kid or an early teenager, games like this were venerated. Darkfate was ranked the 5th best free platformer of 2009, 2010. When it came out by IndieGames.com. So as a kid, I was going down that list and playing all of those games and having a blast. And then I saw this, and I was realizing that what the texture of depth can cause people to read into an experience. So I'm using this game as kind of an emblem of because I'm so kind of committed to that positivity, it can seem like I like everything. Like, I try to see what every game has to offer, which I do. But there are kinds of games that I don't like, and think are bad experiences. There's games like Edmund, which are evil. And so, an evil game, I don't care how technically polished it is or whatever. That's something that I find, if I find it morally objectionable, then, well, fuck that. And then there's pretentious games like this that just kind of hurt. There's a lot of parallels between this and Dear Esther, but I think Dear Esther has more going on. Dear Esther is less. It's obvious exactly what it's trying to do, and more. It's hard to understand. I think it's just kind of muddled, and I think it's really let down by its lousy ending. And Chapter 9, Darkfate. And there are some parallels with Dear Esther's ending and this game's ending. This game, I don't really care for Dear Esther, but I don't hate it either. I don't really hate any game. It's just games that I don't like. I think Dear Esther is, in trying to create this swirling vortex of semi-random text and voiceover around its core story, and then accenting that with this serene journey through an island, it's not my favorite thing, and I don't think it works like Gone Home does, which just is clear and works straight towards its central goal, and I don't think it ultimately works, but I can kind of appreciate where it's coming from much better than something like this. And the reason I dragged on this video so long is because I really wanted to get to the ending, and I've kind of just been going off the cuff and talking about just whatever came to my head about how this game has influenced my critical approach. But the ending is where as a kid, I stuck up my middle fingers and said, this is not what I want out of art. Read the text here, it's important. If you go back, right there, it was just straight up saying the theme of the game, which is just in your face. Fate is immutable. Mankind is doomed. We cannot do anything to change the future. Which is fine if you're kind of trying to approach that idea from like an intelligent perspective, like Chrono Cross kind of goes at that. But this game is just hopeless for no reason, thoughtless about how it approaches its hopelessness, and it's all kind of shot straight to hell by the completely offensive ending, which is what we're coming up to now. Also, I don't like that the backgrounds have a different fidelity than the textures you're walking on. Like, why? And the text, too. It's not committed to its aesthetic, and that annoys me. So, pause your video here. How do you think Darkfate is going to end? What is the dumbest, worst way this fucking game could end, could wrap up? Nothing is following these words. What does it mean? What do you think? How do you think this game ends? Last chance to pause your video. Oh! How can we progress? There's only one way, because fate is immutable. Just like the hand of the game designer, I guess. Oh, this is all meta-textual and intelligent and meaningful. Oh, look at us. Oh. Directed by Kevin Solis. Programming, graphics, and music by Kevin Solis. Original story by Kevin Solis. Catering by Kevin Solis. So I don't like every game. I don't love everything. My heart is not open to every piece of media and person I come into contact with. Oh, and if you hang out, the game automatically sends you to the behind-the-scenes website, which is no longer online. Ugh. Ugh. I wanted to create a supercut of all the bullshit, and not bullshit, indie games that end with your protagonist being forced to jump to their death. Just a supercut. So, fuck you, Dear Esther. Not fuck you, Yume Nikki. I like you. The Swapper has a choice. This fucking game, there's one game called Fractured on Retsupre. I have a list somewhere. There's a lot of them. There is a lot of them. Oh, but this is the worst. Thanks, everybody.